Well, hello there, stranger. It's been a while since I've seen you. Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It's me, Sham Holmeswealth, the 27th. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to give you my review of The Cataclysm by Margaret, Weis, Tracy, Hickman, Michael Williams, Richard A. Knaak, and more. I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga members and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the link in the description below. You can even pick up DragonLance gaming materials using my affiliate links. This year is the 40th anniversary of Dragonlance, so join in the celebration by submitting a video, a piece of art, or writing about Dragonlance to info@dlsaga.com. I will be adding it to the dlsaga.com website celebration landing page with all of the other contributions. So this is my perspective only about this particular review, that was a horrible segue, sorry about that. If you have any thoughts or you disagree with mine, that's okay. You're still welcome here. I'm not going to shut you down. I'm not going to shut you down. We all enjoy things differently. I invite you to share your thoughts in YouTube chat, even if they're different than someone else's, because that's life. We don't have to shut people down for that. We can accept it. All right. So the way this works is that I've got a pre-written review of a synopsis, really quick synopsis of each story, and then quick thoughts about it. And if you have read these, or if you're joining live, put your thoughts in YouTube chat. Anything Star Wars, anything Dragonlance, anything specifically about any of these stories, and I'll get to it afterward, and we'll just sort of riff a little bit. If you're watching this after the fact, put your thoughts in the comments. We always like to hear them. All right, Dragonlance audiobooks for free. How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. All right, so this first story is actually a poem, The Word in the Silence by Michael Williams. This is set up as a son, Orestes, going after his father's slanderer. This person's a bard, which Orestes learns from, and then he leaves with the suggestion that he killed him with poison. He returns home and tells the people that the lies will not be spread anymore, and there was a needless, this poem seemed needlessly convoluted in spots, and I just don't think that I'm a big poem fan when it comes to embedding narratives within them. I like more abstract, emotional, like sort of reflection poems than I do narrative-driven poems. As I try to understand the story itself within each stanza, rather than just enjoying the crafted lyrics that the poem itself is, it makes it very frustrating because I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to be missing if I just read through this? So I got to pay attention to every little thing. Some of it seems contradictory. Some of it seems sort of like thrown in there just for flair. And quite honestly, it's not the Canterbury Tales. It's not Dante's Inferno. Like, let's just go straight and hardcore with this. I don't understand why we have to be so obscure with these poems. It's just, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. All right. Next one. Mark of the Flame, Mark of the World by Michael and Teri Williams. This story is about Orestes' son from the previous poem, but this is a story, who was born with scars much like his father had and grew up not knowing him. It turned out Orestes killed himself to end the curse of his line after the poem's conclusion, but did not know that his wife was pregnant when he did it. Trugon and his mother went to Lindasha, the druid from Behind the Mask novel, and she told him that the past was malleable until it wasn't, which is exactly what you would expect Yoda to say, for example. Meaning his father, the poet, was struggling with the correct wording of a verse, and in it, told the truth. The son left his home to discover that the truth, which then led him to a bandit king's lair. When the bandit king and his men discovered him, they threw him into a black dragon's lair. This is another one of those moments, as dragons are supposed to be extinct for nearly a millennium at this point, but when he's in there, the dragon swallows him, and he learns the truth through his journey that his great-grandfather, or his grandfather, lit fires all across Karagoth to dissuade goblin armies from raiding it, which is why everyone talks smack about him, which is why his father went to go stop the bard from spreading all those lies about him. But it was all misunderstanding, and the fires ended up killing peasants and stuff, and there's this huge uprising. So his father tried to correct the narrative by killing the bard singing the song, but it only entrenched the world's idea of the family even more. And with this truth, Trugon wrote the poem on the inside of the dragon's belly. For some unknown reason, the dragon then left his cave, killing the Bandit King. And apparently the bandits and the Bandit King, when they were swallowed, didn't come anywhere near Trugon, which is weird because what are they, like 2 stomachs or something? But anyway, it ended up then spitting the boy out on a ship deck, but not the other bandit pieces or the Bandit King's body parts or anything. Really weird. So his scars were healed and apparently his family curse lifted. It was very weird. Like, I just don't... The story was okay, but it's still written as if it were a retelling of a poem rather than a short story. I don't really even know how to describe it. Ultimately, it fell completely flat for me. I didn't resonate with the story. It didn't really make any logical sense. And I'm still a little bit confused about Trugon and Orestes and the grandfather. Like, none of it really is clear. And that's unfortunate when there's 2 stories devoted to this same tale, and neither of them leave you with any sense of conclusive understanding. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's Maybelline. All right. The Bargain Driver is the next story by Mark Anthony. This was a fun story about a bargain merchant named Mattia who came across a wounded knight of Salamnia. He's on a quest to return a magic doll to a town supposedly destroyed in the Cataclysm. Mattia takes him there after bargaining for the doll, and the knight agrees. When they arrive, they meet a woman named Ciri, and the town itself is full of life. It turns out that Ciri wants the knight to place the doll on an altar to break a spell laid on her by her wizard uncle who wants to marry her. Why not throw a little incest into a Dragonlance story, right? Weird. In truth, the whole town is just an illusion, and Ciri is the illusionist who's trapped here in the Cataclysm. She needs to trade places with someone in order to leave. Since the knight gave Mattia the doll, the knight can't do the request that Ciri has given him, so Ciri tries to bargain for the doll from Maya, and Maya can't do it, knowing that the knight would then be stuck here forever. Her conscience just won't let her do it. So she breaks the doll, which shatters the illusion and Ciri herself, and then takes the knight to Garnet, where they're slowly turning from friends to a little bit more than friends, if you know what I mean. This was a really fun story that's more about letting yourself find love and friendship over possessions. Maya learns humanity and concern for others from the knight, and while it doesn't change her completely, it does have an effect on her. And I like, just in general, how your interactions with others lead you to a new understanding about yourself, your beliefs, and the world at large. And this story reminded me of that, and I really appreciate it. All right, the next story was called Seekers by Todd Fahnestock. Fahnestock. I don't know. This was a devastatingly sad story about a young man who lost his whole village to the plague, even though his mother worshipped Paladine. Then set out to ask the gods why. He climbed the tallest new peak that the Cataclysm created. At the same time, another mercenary looking for revenge on a group of bandits who attacked and killed his family comes across the boy and suspects that he may be a lackey from the bandits. And so he follows him. He finds the starved ogre trying to capture the boy and eat him, and he steps in and fights the ogre, driving it off rather than killing it, as he understands that everyone is hard up in these times. The boy then falls ill, and the man stays to take the dying boy to the top of the mountain so that he can ask the gods why. And when the boy doesn't get an answer from the gods, obviously, he forgives Paladine, like the man forgave the ogre and let him go. The man then leaves, stating that he will never forgive the gods after having buried the boy. This was so sad and beautiful. It was about survivors seeking answers in their own way and finding tiny moments of solace in each other's company. The man taking the boy up the mountain was a beautiful moment. He knew he may get the disease from him, but he wanted the boy to have the opportunity to challenge the gods for his loss. I loved this story, even as he forsook the gods after they took the boy's life. It felt real to me in the best and worst of ways. Beautiful tale. All right, the next one's called No Gods, No Heroes by Nick O'Donohoe. This is a funny story about a band of traders who were transporting a load of ale to a town that no longer existed after the Cataclysm. They also were transporting a prisoner to the same town, and their whole plans were based on the money that they would get for the ale and the prisoner. But then they were ambushed by bounty hunters, and the prisoner saved them all, and they heard a tale of a terrifying man with an army coming into the territory. The strength of this story lies in the dialogue and relationships of these ne'er-do-wells. They plan on doing bad things, but end up doing good things. Their leader never says a bad word about anyone and always looks on the bright side of life. It's actually a refreshing change of pace. They're approached by a town who is asking for help defeating the coming army, and as the group plans to go around the enemy, they inadvertently attack them with the ale barrels, only to discover that the army itself was fake, planning to drive the people out of town so that they could loot the town. They defeated the group and discovered the town doesn't even exist in the first place. So they're offered roles as protectors, and the traders pardon the prisoner who saved their lives. I really enjoyed the silliness of the story, and the characters were all great. I don't think every story has to be like life and death, love and sorrow. Some can just be entertaining and funny, and this short story hit that mark. All right, the next one's called Into Shadow, Into Light by Richard A. Knaak. And let me tell you something, Knaak knocks it out of the park again. This story is about Renard the Oathbreaker from his novel The Legend of Huma. He is tortured in the abyss for his actions in life and desperately wants one sip of water. He calls out to the gods, and suddenly he finds himself on Krynn. He is a specter, and a Knight of the Rose passes him. He follows the knight, who eventually sees him and tells him the peasants murdered his friend, another knight, and he's off to seek vengeance on them. This is not a knight's way, and against the measure, so Renard realizes that he must set this knight straight. They speak of Huma, and Renard admits who he is. The knight wants to know why what Huma would do in his situation, and Renard initially refuses to play the game, but tells him, relenting. They follow the peasants to see that they are actually being killed off by cult members of Morgian. The knight is captured, and so Renard kills the cultists, freeing the knight, and the knight goes to help the villagers rather than kill them, seeking vengeance. This grants Renard a sip of water in death, then it all starts over again, and he wonders what he will have to do to find rest now. I love that Knaak returned to this character and gave us a glimpse into a trader's afterlife. Also, it provides an example of balance and justice, which I really, really enjoy, even if it's buried in religious mumbo-jumbo. It fits in with Dragonlance, so I'm here for it. Really great one. Hey, Chris, how you doing? All right, Ogre Unaware by Dan Parkinson. This was a bit of a tough one for me. While I enjoyed the concept, it was a bit of a slog to get through. We pick up with an ogre traveling in the mountains when the Cataclysm strikes. He's thrown all around as the land changes, mountain rise and crash. Ultimately, he's thrown into a deep crevasse and knocked unconscious. Then we cut to the Bulp clan from the first Tales 2 anthology. They left Istar and found a new this place to call home when the Cataclysm strikes. They begin to dig out and find gold, so some bring the High Bulp to show him, and a cave-in and aftershocks locks them away. His wife was making rat stew and got the other crew to search for the High Bulp, only to discover the ogre, who now thinks she is his mother, following him around. The High Bulp and crew make their way to the surface, only to be captured by human slavers. The ogre and the High Bulp's wife track them, only to find them with the slavers, and the ogre bashes the humans' heads, freeing the High Bulp and the other Agar. They all leave and decide to knight the ogre, but when they do, they bonk him on the head, and then he remembers that he's an ogre and not an Agar, and goes on to attack them, then feels sorry for the dwarves and leaves. That's it. It's a goofy story, it's got goofy dialogue and goofy situations, and it makes it a little bit interesting and entertaining, but for some reason, this sequel did not resonate as much as the first story did for me. It was rough. The next story is called The Cobbler's Son by Roger E. Moore. I did not like this story at all. I'm just putting it out there right now. It's about a kender named Walnut Arskin, who was adopted by a cobbler named Ark, who worked for Astinus of Palanthus. He discovered Walnut's mother sick and dying and took the child after burying her and raising him. He was given an assignment to ask people what they think of Istar now that it's been 22 years since the Cataclysm. And the whole story is how the Kender went around posing as a writer, asking different types of people this same question and getting vastly different answers, which more often than not led to trouble. The whole tale was just one misadventure after another that just didn't resonate with me. The biggest story beat was a burned down baker's shop, and the owner, Goodwife Filster, wanted to kill the Kender and Ark for it. Even though it was clearly her fault. She was busy trying to get rid of the Kender and then left a rag where it ignited. The culmination of the story was based on the Kender saying that Astinus wants everyone to be able to work together as they may need to in the future, suggesting the topic of a global war. But there's nothing in the story that suggests that. So why would the Kender ever come to that conclusion? It all just fell completely flat for me, and I hoped that the next story was better. Hey, Michael, how you doing, man? The Voyage of the Sun Chaser by Paul B. Thompson and Tanya R. Carter. And we're back. This was a great short story about a ship that was delivering a revered son to Istar, and the mountain hit, sinking Istar and making the Blood Sea of Istar. The priest refused to believe that anything could happen to the Kingpriest of Istar, so he made the captain continue sailing into this new sea, new disturbing waters, to deliver this special bowl. They pick up a castaway who is on a house. She told them that a mountain hit Istar and waters flooded up, swallowing her town, but the priest refused to believe her, and then they continued sailing until they were 100 miles past the shoreline that would have been Istar. The priest directed them to continue when they saw the center of the maelstrom, and the priest then told them to go through the center of the maelstrom to Istar. They hit the outer ring and saw statues of the Kingpriest pierce the hull, lightning struck the mast, and everyone was freaking out. The revered son leapt overboard in shock, and the rest got into the bowl that they were transporting and were washed away from the maelstrom. This was a great story that I never considered. Sailors discovering the carnage of Istar for the first time. Again, we're introduced to douchey priests, but that's kind of par for the course in this era. Really great story. The next one was called The High Priest of Halcyon by Douglas Niles. And this was a great horror story about the return of Takhisis. Now, when I make this comparison, I am not saying it's on par with H.P. Lovecraft's writing, which arguably isn't really that great. It's just really convoluted and filled with adjectives to confound and describe unimaginable horrors. That's really his bread and butter. But the story did remind me heavily of H.P. Lovecraft's work. All right, so Scribe of Astinus, Forsyth Teal, received word from an old acquaintance about a new cult that had proof of the gods, or miracles. As he arrived and was met by the priest Erasmus Lurker, who said that his scholar friend had left. Then they went to the temple above Halcyon, past the New Sea, into the mountains, and found an ancient temple with 5 pillars of flame. Then the priests disrobed and revealed that all of them were zombies. The priest had a female who was close to Forsyth kill herself as he watched in horror and entered a cavern. She came back out as undead. The priest wanted Forsyth to reveal that Takhisis isn't in the world yet, but she is coming. This is relayed to Astinus. I thought this was a great short story as it shared the panic and horror of his experience wonderfully. The setting was great, and it seemed like it's the Dark Temple of Naraka as it was building itself from the keystone Takhisis placed on Krynn, but I'm not entirely sure that that's exactly where they were. That's just the vibe I got from it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm a horror fan anyway, so anytime you get a Dragonlance horror story, I'm there for it. All right, the next one is the last one, True Night by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. So this is the continuation of Nicole and brother Michael after the Night of Dread, when all clerics vanished from Krynn. They returned to their castle, which was in shambles, and tried to clean it and live there. Then Lord Soth, the human version of him, arrived on his way to Istar asking for water. He told them that he was on a mission from Paladine to stop the Kingpriest. Nicole found hope in Lord Soth, and life started to return to normal for a few days, till the storms grew worse, and the Cataclysm came. Michael and Nicole pledged their love to each other and decided to travel to Michael's old home of Zaxxaroth. He is looking for answers in the discs of Mishakal, but when they finally arrive, the doors to the temple were shut. They saw an avatar of Mishakal, the mother, who they believed to be a crazy woman who directed them to Planthus and the Great Library. Nicole believed that that was the next best hope, so they set off. They arrived in Planthus as the revered son was raising a mob to overrun the Great Library. Nicole and Michael left to tell the Knights of Solamnia in the High Clerist's Tower, but the Knights only tried to arrest them. Then, the now undead Lord Soth stepped in and actually saved them. They returned to Planthus to find the library being mobbed. They entered through a window and were led to a room with the tale of Lord Soth in it. Then Soth appeared to them and confessed to everything, murdering his wife and then his second wife and son, showing only frustration with the code for the curse. However, when the mob began attacking the library, Lord Soth stepped side by side with Nicole to drive them off. She only saw who he was, the brave Knight of the Rose, not who he is, the Death Knight, and they left to Abanasinia to be the eventual ancestors of Riverwind. I really enjoyed the end of this story with Lord Soth knowing regret and knowing others will read his tale as a cautionary one. And I think this version of Lord Soth is probably my favorite version of him. I loved what James Luceno, was it? Louder. I loved what Louder did in Ravenloft for Lord Soth, but it was a departure from the original intention of what Tracy Hickman had for the character. And Tracy Hickman's version of the character is much more nuanced and not so obsessed with Kitiara as Louder's version is. And I actually preferred the version. So, what are you going to do? Sean, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. The Nook, what up? All right, that was like the whole anthology collection of short stories. Do you guys have any thoughts about this? Let me see what you got. Kender going around taking a survey. How freaking annoying. Yeah, the story was annoying. I really didn't like it at all. Let's see. You like the part in this anthology where the gods warned the Kender to go the wrong way to see the Cataclysm. The gods warned the Kender to go the wrong way to see the Cataclysm. I must have blocked that out, to be honest, because it's not resonating in my mind at all. Are all these stories happen after the Cataclysm? Yes. So the first one was before the Cataclysm, the Reign of Istar. The second anthology, this one, is the Cataclysm. It's about the fallout, how people got on about their lives. And the last one's going to be the War of the Lance. And so I'm assuming it's all about War of the Lance era stories, what the war is doing to people. So, it's just sort of a little bit of column A, column B type stuff. The Kender would bust in checking what type of snacks are lying around. Also, a treasure inspection would be in order. Yeah. Oh, boy. Do I enjoy the short stories? You never check them out yourself. I liked the majority of these ones. There were a couple that I thought were stinkers. In the last anthology, there's only like one that I didn't like, and the rest of them I really, really loved. In the next one, I don't know. I haven't read it yet. So I will tell you when I do, but I don't know really much, to be honest. I will keep them coming as long as I have time to keep reading them. I've been fortunate in the past couple of years to be able to plow through books at a feverish pace, and I hope to keep doing that. But eventually, I don't know, maybe I'll go blind like the Ingalls girl in House on the Prairie, and I won't be able to do it. I don't know. I feel like I'm already going blind. I have to use glasses now. All right, that is it for my review of The Cataclysm by Margaret, Weis, Tracy Hickman, Michael Williams, and Richard Knaak, and many other authors. What did you all think of the collected stories? Did you have a favorite one or a favorite author? And finally, would you ever play a game set decades right after The Cataclysm? Not War of the Lance era, post-Cataclysm, just horrible quality of life era of Dragonlance. Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. It all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. And this channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the DragonLance Saga. Thank you guys so much for joining in the 40th anniversary celebration. Yeah! So, for this episode, my name is Adam with DragonLance Saga, and until next time, Slanjuvar.